Hello, and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Joke Rogers at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Vincent Magu from the Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks, I'm Vincent Magu at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Joke Rogers in Lagos brings you that story.
As part of efforts to enhance the operational capacity of the Nigerian police, 2,000 mobile barracks equipment have been received from the German government. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, while receiving the equipment at the Police College in Ikeja, Lagos, explains that the equipment came at the right time as the force is launching a new special crime cracking squad.
An epoch-making event at the Police College Ikeja. The proceeds of a long-time bilateral agreement reached between the Federal Republic of Germany and the Nigerian government.
On the entourage of the IGP.
On display are samples of a 2,000-man mobile barracks donated to the Police Reform and Transformation Office with support from German government and the United Nations Development Programme towards enhancing police reform efforts in Nigeria.
We will continue the support. We will engage further in police training. We will engage further in police equipment. We will engage further in strategic dialogue with our partners, and especially try to help Porto in their efforts to reform the police in Nigeria so that they will be not only a model in this country, but also a model in Africa and in the world.
Under this new IGP, they've repurposed it to use as, how would I describe it, as a force projection mechanism to be able to take Nigerian police officers out in the field, taking care of their welfare so they can optimally perform their constitutional duty of securing lives and property and maintaining law and order and peace and security throughout Nigeria.
Speaking on the gesture, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetokun, noted the donated mobile barracks would help bridge the accommodation gap at the training school and the newly constituted Special Intervention Squad.
This equipment that we are receiving today is coming at the time that is most needed. We are going to deploy this equipment during the training of our members of our special squad. The equipment will also help in providing immediate solution to the challenges of accommodation in our training schools. Now, our training schools will have capacity to train more men as we get more of these donations. Before I come down here to make this address, I got a commitment from His Excellency Johannes Lehne, the Deputy Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, that more of these tents and more other donations will be coming to the Nigerian Police Force.
The donation consists of an 8-man tent furnished with beddings and conveniences. On the side are industrial kitchens for cooking for the officers at their places of deployment.
Let's take a deeper look at this, and joining us via Zoom is security consultant Kingsley Ugwu. Thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Oh, good morning. Thanks for having me once more.
Right, so how do you think this equipment from Germany will enhance the operational capacity of the Nigeria police? Are there any specific challenges or issues it aims to address within the force?
Yes, it's a welcome development. Before now, I've been at the forefront of discussing and encouraging the police on the need to have modern barracks, especially for the police mobile force. Because part of the security challenges we are having, or the main problem with the police, is not having sufficient or modern barracks that houses each personnel. For instance, you might have a problem in a given local government or community, Well, because these officers live in different locations, not in a barracks, it's difficult to assemble them to be able to respond to emergency call. Okay, so but when you have barracks or you have collections of these mobile barracks in a given location, just at the sound of a whistle is able to assemble them for them to respond on emergencies more rapid than what is obtainable currently.
Nigeria faces a lot of security challenges, including issues like insurgency, banditry, and, kidnappings and abductions have been added to this list. How does this allocation fit into the broader national security strategy, and how will it impact these ongoing challenges?
Yes, the allocation is very strategic in the sense that in the remote areas, you are able to deploy the mobile barracks and other associated equipment on internal security. Much more equipment and training is needed, such as what we've just received, in order to be able to enhance that. What measures are in place, or what measures should be in place to ensure that these mobile barracks equipment are used effectively and efficiently? Okay, in terms of that, there should be a department that will be in charge of auditing the equipment in terms of now that it's been commissioned for use. It is believed that it will be audited, then allocated to the various, not just police command, but also squadron commands of the new tactical squad. The Inspector General of Police promised that is underway and undergoing training. But the works departments of the force need to take appropriate measures to make sure that these equipment are maintained in line with its manufacturers or assembling companies' procedures, and have a lifespan for the asset in terms of its decommissioning.
And what role does international cooperation and partnerships play in securing equipment like this for Nigeria's law enforcement agencies? Are there any external organizations, other than governments like Germany that actually, brought in these equipment for Nigeria? And if this is so, how does this affect Nigeria's security landscape?
You see, we live in a global community. So what affects Nigeria does not just affect Nigerians and its neighbors, but it goes beyond that to all members of the world organizations. Okay, so the German government, for instance, have huge investments here in Nigeria. So if Nigeria suffers internal security crisis, it also affects the German government, the justification for their equipment donation. Beyond the German government, there are special agencies of the United Nations that from time to time donate equipment to the Nigerian police. So it's also obtainable under the European Union. Then you also have, from time to time, such organizations could come in under the African Union. We cannot say the ECOWAS because Nigeria is the bigger umbrella under ECOWAS in terms of funding other states. You will also recall that the same way that Germany has extended this good handshake to Nigeria, in the previous administration, Nigeria also extended some kind of help to Niger Republic in terms of logistics and what have you. So it's a global community that we are in, and it's expected that from time to time, any nation or international organization that has the capacity to support any nation can do so for peace and security of the global community.
Security consultant Kingsley Ugwu, thank you so much for your time today on Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on viewafrica.com. After the break, by Lake Chad, Fulani women make maps that reduce farmer-harder conflicts. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent Magu in Washington. Female leaders of the Fulani, an ethnic group of mostly nomadic herders across West and East Africa, are showing women can play a vital role to reduce friction over land rights with farmers. In this report from Lake Chad, reporter Henry Wilkins meets women helping make digital maps to define boundaries and prevent conflict.
By Lake Chad, members of the Fulani community, a group of nomadic herders found across West Africa and the Sahel, have clashed with farmers for as long as anyone here can remember. Cattle roam onto farms and eat crops, while farmers plough land that has traditionally been used by the Fulani for grazing. A non-profit called the Association for Indigenous Women and Peoples of Chad, or AFPAT for short, is trying to change that through a project that draws on the local knowledge of women to make maps. Through discussions led by AFPAT, farmers and herders agree on what land can be used by who. AFPAT's founder, Hindu Ibrahim, told VOA the maps allow herders
to put all the traditional knowledge that they have, because there is no science or technology in that communities. It can help to mitigate the conflict between them, because when they map their resources, they know how they can put in clear strategy of sharing and accessing those resources, but conserving them for the long term.
Ibrahim, who has won a range of international awards for her activism promoting the role of women in society and environmental issues, says that women played an essential role in the discussions that made these maps possible.
So women have a very important and rich traditional knowledge. And most of the time, we do not consider women to come and contribute into the decision-making, because we are all in patriarchal decision-making communities.
Disputes between herders and farmers have been partially blamed for insecurity in West Africa and recruitment by extremist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. Activists like Ibrahim and Animatu Ado Jibo from the Nigeria-based non-profit Fulbe Development and Cultural Organisation say empowering women and involving them more in the Fulani community can reduce the risk of communities siding with extremists. Jibo, who uses the term Fulbe, another name for the Fulani people, says literacy is key to achieving this.
Not only the literacy that we are doing, but also the skills acquisition to the Fulbe women, so that they can be able to help their families. And we also enlighten them to stop movement from one place to another, let them enroll their children into the Western education.
Whatever the approach, activists believe Fulani women have an essential role to play in reducing insecurity. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Lake Chad, Chad.
For a long time, Fuad Lawal had difficulties getting simple information about Nigeria's history online until a work trip in 2019 when he stumbled upon the 1980s newspapers in the Usman Dan Fodio University Library in Sokoto State, Nigeria. That's when he started a pilot mission to digitize newspapers from a trial period of 1960 to 2010. His startup, Archive NG, located 97% of the papers for the trial period within 6 weeks.
Realizing the wealth of information not available online, Fuad Lawal, a former journalist, questioned the broader need for such accessibility.
And so the question became like, if I have this need, how many more people have this need? And that's pretty much how we got started.
However, the COVID-19 lockdowns and issues of acquiring the appropriate scanning technology delayed the project until April 2023. The former journalist explained that while snippets of Nigeria's history exist online, the aim of the project is to capture not only significant events, but also the daily lives of ordinary people.
Whenever we think of history, we tend to think about big things, politics, leadership. But it's also the small things, like how did we date in the 70s, and what were we eating? When did jollof rice become mainstream?
Archiving is the process of cataloguing print material from over 30 publishers across Nigeria. This involves obtaining permission to digitize archives, sorting and scanning the papers and passing them through a quality control process before uploading them to the cloud.
Documentation is very, very important because it helps preservation of information, especially lost information or not enough information that is there on the internet, because most of these things we are documenting, we can't find them in real details or in its originality.
After scanning 50,000 pages and over 120,000 stories, archiving went live on Saturday, September the 30th for its pilot phase. The project, funded by donations, has raised over $30,000 to date.
China pledged to help South Africa with its crippling energy crisis during the recent BRICS summit in Johannesburg. At the same time, South Africa said it wants to correct a trade imbalance with China and export more finished products. But manufacturing in South Africa is currently hampered by the unreliable power grid. Kate Bartlett spoke to business owners in Johannesburg about the challenges they face.
These tools of the trade, a necessity to running a clothing business in the 21st century. The creative mind behind this South African shop is a man with big dreams.
We are gearing the business right now to be more international.
Shepo Malala may dream of his clothing designs going global, but he faces one challenge: almost daily power failures.
Something that has to take you a week can take you up to 4 weeks. So that's the biggest challenge that we have right now.
While Malala has solar panels to help keep some of his machines running, they're not enough to run the bigger equipment. This business is not alone. South Africa recently signed deals with China, its biggest trade partner, to help with the energy crisis here. They include a grant and emergency equipment from China totaling some $30 million. Some experts see investments like these as an example of China's shift away from big infrastructure investments under its Belt and Road Initiative to more strategic investments under Beijing's green agenda. While South African President Cyril Ramaphosa thanked the Chinese leader for the grant, he also pointed to what he said was a significant trade deficit. Ramaphosa wants to see African countries move away from mainly exporting raw materials to more finished products. But experts say years of government mismanagement and corruption mean much of the infrastructure in South Africa, the continent's most industrialized country, is breaking down.
I doubt in the short to medium term that the trade imbalance between South Africa and China will change. Firstly, the destruction of South African industrial capacity. Secondly, destruction of infrastructure, because South African ports aren't working efficiently. The rail infrastructure has collapsed, and we have talked about the electricity already. So therefore, it is a wish list.
South African Tony Esslinger, who runs Primal Spirits Distillery, also struggles breaking into the export market, with power outages being one of the main impediments.
The problem with it is that these machines run throughout the day, and one run on the spirit run, for instance, is 8 hours. So if we have an interruption halfway through, then we have to reheat the equipment the next day. That's extra electricity.
Whether the new Chinese-funded electrical infrastructure can help businesses such as this distillery or this atelier expand overseas may depend on management within South Africa and China's willingness to import finished products from South Africa. Kate Bartlett for VOA News, Johannesburg.
Unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly known as drones, serve a multitude of purposes. They play crucial roles in tasks such as climate monitoring, disaster relief operations, photography, recreation, and even goods delivery. However, their most recognized and contentious application lies in military operations, including surveillance and targeted strikes. In Africa, the drone industry is experiencing growth, transforming into a substantial sector. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Simosa, reports.
Technological Innovation, a South African company, is spearheading the development of the continent's largest unmanned aerial vehicle, commonly known as drones. But what does this innovation mean for South Africa and the entire continent at large? I had the opportunity to speak with Daniel Du Plessis, Communications Manager at Milco.
So this is the largest UAV that's ever been produced on the African continent. It is officially the largest one by any standard, but it's categorized as a medium altitude, long endurance UAV. There are only a few companies worldwide that have the capability and have successfully completed programs for the development of such a large-scale UAV. And essentially, it makes it possible for South Africa and also other African member states to make use of this technology for operations within the defense force and security branches.
As some countries endeavor to bolster their drone production capabilities, there have been reported delays in the progress of these drones. Daniel shed some light on the obstacles faced in this regard.
South Africa has a rich history of using UAVs since the 1980s, actually. And they've continued to develop with their own internal programs, various different sizes and applications of UAVs in general. And you're quite right in saying in the last 20 years it has been kind of quiet. And the main reason for that is there was a big skills drain from South Africa. Highly experienced engineers and software developers leaving the country to work for other companies abroad.
What is the purpose behind the design of these drones? What role are they intended to fulfill?
This UAV is categorized as a medium altitude, long endurance UAV. And essentially what it means, it's a high endurance or long endurance reconnaissance, surveillance and intelligence gathering platform.
The drone, with a wingspan of 18.6 meters, can remain in the air for 35 uninterrupted hours, sometimes impossible with a manned craft because humans need to rest. The craft can fly up to 2,000 kilometers. As part of the agreement with the South African Department of Defense, the first aircraft produced will be used exclusively by the South African government. From Centurion, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
Hundreds of volunteers are fighting illiteracy in the province of Manica in Mozambique. They are creating reading camps that teach children to read in Portuguese. And Andre Baptista reports in this story narrated by Barbara Santos.
A group of volunteers are creating reading camps as a local initiative to change the precarious education rates in districts of the Mozambican province of Manica. Carpenters, painters, and farmers are among the volunteers, who work under the guidance of professional mentor teachers and dedicate some of their free time to help local children learn how to read. Artur Maha is a 57-year-old carpenter. Twice a week, he switches from wood and nails to using white chalk and a classroom board.
With my skills and the education that I've received until 4th grade, I can help improve the current situation. What I learned until 4th class back then was better than what children have in 10th grade now.
Sheila Gemussi, a ceramicist, is also teaching in her community.
Child by child, they learn by singing each syllable while playing. We can use modeling clay or other things. We can also teach through ball games. We have several games we can give to children to help them learn.
The initiative targets 102,000 children in 102 public schools in Manica. Officials say many students in rural areas speak local languages at home and do not learn Portuguese, the official language, until they start school. Samuel Lawrence, the Director of Education in Manica.
Some children learn Portuguese for the first time in school. It is a challenge. So there you must reconcile the methodology, look for semantics to precisely decipher some meanings.
E desafio. Então ali há que conciliar a metodologia, ter que buscar a semântica para justamente decifrar alguns significados.
Sociologist Reginaldo Muthemba says the local initiative can easily be implemented in other communities.
They see the problem and the community join efforts to create a kind of functional equivalent, a reinforcement, which in this case replaces the absence of a capable teacher. So, this is an experience that, in my opinion, could be followed in other communities.
The initiative receives funding from the humanitarian organization Save the Children, and classes are offered 4 times a week. For André Batista in Manica, Mozambique, Barbara Santos, VOA News.
And that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. Vincent Magu in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Do remember, channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Joker Rogers. Thanks for watching and goodbye.